Yeah. So welcome everybody. This is I am Natasha Detweiler-Davy, the Director of Affordable Rental Housing here at Oregon Housing and Community Services. I welcome you all to this webinar and an update on our Article 11 Q bond resources. I'll be recording this so that we can also have a recording available for those that are unable to attend live in this conversation. Let's see, I think maybe I'm sharing my screen. So I will just kind of jump into this. So today we will, I'm just hoping to review the updates to the documents. I've shared out the updated draft intercreditor agreement, operating agreement. I'm hoping that we can be getting out later this week, if not next week for sure. And kind of get into a discussion of the impact of these changes and then where we are. Created another survey tool to be able to make sure that we can capture any additional input or insight that is coming from all of your perspectives, and then dig into next steps. So thank you for being here today. And so I'm going to just start with a reprise, and this might be old news to many of you, but I think it's a good centering component of this work. The Article 11 Q bond resources called out as the Article 11 Q of the Constitution, and these resources have been issued by the state to help fund affordable housing development across the state. Very excited by this legislative session has just invested a tremendous amount, another 600 million in Article 11 Q bonds broadly, and really is exciting to be able to meet the moment of the extreme need for housing across the state. And I know that it's all of the partners and partnerships here represented in this call that really make that happen. Tied to that Constitution, the Article 11 Q of the Constitution, are some real requirements for the use of these resources, and that is really a guiding light for aligning in these conversations. And so as I revisited the conversations that we've had over, beginning in March into April and May, we really worked to pin down what the needs of the state are in this resource, as well as what the needs are from the lender community with that. And so I'm going to just kind of regroup around those. A first requirement for the state is that the affordability is not foreclosed. In a case of a financial foreclosure, we require and we need to have our loan in first position. We're able to share it. But that we need to really truly share it and not have that affordability restrictions foreclosed, and that we have included in where they're in operational controls that are meaningful. And what we had heard from lenders in order to participate with this resource is that lender resources are also in first position, and that there are rights established that don't put the lender into a subordinate position. And then in the case of a financial foreclosure, the lender needs to have comfort and understanding that all liens can be extinguished, and that the lender is repaid in a case of a foreclosure before any other parties. And it's in balancing all of those needs where, when we last checked in, I think that was in May, we'd gotten to evolution of these documents that really balanced those on a conceptual level. And so we established that affordability was not foreclosed. We did let the lien be extinguished, so the lien is extinguished, but the affordability through the operating agreement persists following a financial foreclosure. Let's see, the loans shared first position, really carefully balancing intentions around how those rights are controlled. And that we build into their operational controls that are meaningful. I think those are pretty much the pieces of all of it. So in balancing our operational controls, we need to also have or in balancing the liens in first position and loans in first position, also balancing that with operational controls that take impact. So as we have worked through these updates to Article Q bonds, and I think I had circulated in the technical advisory, we had put in a draft, the updated draft copy of the intercreditor agreement. I'll just post that link into the chat. And so established here is, the shared first position, allowing that upon foreclosure, all liens, including the lift lien, is extinguished. The prior version of this had evolved into a kind of a setup where the bank and the lender could act on behalf of the state. And so in lieu of that, we have built in essentially noticing and consent protocols here. So the bank must provide notice to OHCS before taking any enforcement action, and that the bank consult with the state in various situations, and those are prescribed and laid out. And so instead of having the state be trying to find the right word, instead of the state's rights being essentially assumed in that shared first position by the bank, establishing what that relationship is, and that there's noticing and consultation across the group. And in the case of enforcement action is a foreclosure, again, allowing both liens to be extinguished, and then moving into the place of that operating agreement, following that financial foreclosure and the extinguishment of those liens, the operating agreement and therefore the affordability persists. The only way that the operating agreement and the affordability provisions would be eliminated in advance of a financial foreclosure is that both the state and the lender would need to consent and agree that the best path forward is to eliminate affordability restrictions. Another piece of that then built into there is that we have built in a state option to purchase the property prior to the financial foreclosure by the bank by paying back the bank for their outstanding balance in there. And that is kind of a balancing of both of really all parties' interest in maintaining these investments as affordable housing, and also wanting to make sure that there are pathways to making sure that that is happen and that is mitigating risk and also providing additional operational controls. Yeah. There are a few, and I know we have not yet circulated the updated drafts of the operational document. Again, part of what has happened as we have evolved the kind of strategy around this and the consent provisions and the idea that affordability remains through virtue of the operating agreement is that we have added more language, more robust controls within the operating agreement. And so that includes establishing a monetary penalty for project owners when there's non-compliance with affordability requirements. And so that is really high level. The property must continue to be used for affordable housing. And so that penalty, as it is currently drafted, it's an active exchange and drafting situation right now, but is intended to be following a noticing provision and kind of the opportunity to work it out. So it's not on day one you're get a financial penalty, but there'll be a workout process in advance of that. And it's really around retaining the property to be operated as affordable housing. We established within the operating agreement consent process for the sale or transfer of the property, and that does exclude a situation where it is a foreclosure and a non-negotiated foreclosure sale. So if I'm thinking of a foreclosure on the courthouse steps, and at that point in time, it's not feasible or reasonable to think that on the courthouse steps, the state would need to approve a purchaser. So if it ever got to that situation, which I think is incredibly unlikely, that is a case where we wouldn't require the consent, but that every other circumstance would be able to have a process. And I think putting some parameters around the responsiveness around that, but be able to have a consent process, knowing that the state will be in business with whomever it is that is purchasing that property. And then in the case of a foreclosure where, as it stands now and currently and into the future, the LIFT resource is invested as a loan, and that loan at the end of the affordability period can either be satisfied through repayment, or it can be satisfied through extended affordability. And so that remains. But in a case of financial foreclosure where the state does not get their resources back, the lender does, the state does not get their resources back, we retain affordability period, and that after that foreclosure process, we extend out further for that, what would have been the repayment consideration, so that we are also essentially having our needs met. Let's see. And so I'm seeing in the chat, Jillian, I see your question. When affordability requirements survive foreclosure, are units at less than 60 allowed to float to 60? And then I think Destin, I'm seeing that this is a carry on to that conversation. The LIFT statute requires 60%. So it would have, the program would not allow floating to higher than 60%. And I don't know if anybody from DOJ is on the phone and able to respond to the specific provisions around letting units float or doing a workout at that point in time, if that's built in right now to the documents, or if that's a follow-up conversation that I should have.
Natasha, this is Christy, and I can't recall. This is not one of the things that was a major sticking point, which are the things that are pretty much sticking out in my head. I think we'd be happy to, talk about this and have a chat with you. But probably if we could submit this through the survey at the end so that we can catch all those questions, we can follow up on the ones that haven't been quite so pressing.
Yeah. Absolutely. And I think so. We will, I guess, to Jillian and Dustin, we will follow up on that. I do think, from a resource and let's see, long-term asset management perspective, the idea of being able to be responsive to project workouts within our statutory requirements to be able to make sure that projects remain viable, I think we would be interested in pursuing that. And I want to balance that with what is built into the documents at this point in time. So I think we'll follow up, but again, I will have a survey at the end and I'll keep that on my radar as well, but please do feel free to fit that in. I know that we have discussed that at length, but that it's been a couple months. Okay, but I do know that the statutory requirements of LIFT did not allow it to go up to 80%. Let's see. Okay, so those are like really the big, so I think, as of even back to May, we had landed on the big conceptual pivots to address each of the, big criteria and needs from lenders and the state, and that what we have really engaged in since that time has been drafting and wordsmithing and balancing the details of all and impact of all of these words. So DOJ, bond counsel, developer counsel, lender counsel, and I think a large, I know a large number of other interested lender counsel that have kind of formed work groups and provided input. have been engaging in active conversation and drafting exercises and efforts to be able to get to revised formats. We have successfully closed lift only deals and one lift bond deal, and have others in hopefully near-term situations to be able to move forward. And I think, I think what is really reassuring and emphasizing in all of this is that it is abundantly clear that there is alignment and agreement across all of the funding partners, lenders, jurisdictions, state, and others, that prioritizing and retaining affordability as a central tenet does make sense. And so, and it is, so that is not an area of conflict, that is an area of alignment, which is really meaningful and exciting. I think it is then in the details of how that works. And so that is where right now the focus is less so what used to be on really focused explicitly on the priority and subordination agreement and intercreditor agreement. Those are relatively I guess not in active revision generally at this point in time, where the focus is really transferred over to the operating agreement. And so because that operating agreement persists following financial foreclosure, the challenge is then balancing the needs for ongoing operational controls with the bank's reality of needing to make sure that in a case of a foreclosure, they have the ability to recoup their resources and find a purchaser for the property. And so those are really where the active attention and efforts are as of this week. And I think that we are, have had concessions from both sides and are really threading the needle of needs really effectively, and in a I guess that's my perspective, is really effectively and comprehensively. And so I think we are optimistic here that we have a viable program. I have, so here on the screen is the link to the survey. I also can post that link into the chat. I guess I put two links into the chat just to, broadly get your temperature on a series of items, then open opportunity to provide additional details or thoughts, desires for consultation or input. I do expect to have a handful more maybe smaller conversations around that, engagement from the lender community around this, as well as other resources that we have from this legislative session. In talking with our council and bond council, are optimistic to be able to really work to finalize an updated template the end of this quarter, as we are then kind of launching into looking forward. And I think very broadly want to express gratitude and appreciation for all of the development community, lender community, so many legal minds that have given input either specifically related to deals or as consultation on the side. And so I just will offer my appreciation around that. Again, feel like we are balancing all of these needs as well as we can, given the real constraints and requirements of these resources. And we'll have to navigate the consequences of where there may not be comfort with where there may or may not be comfort, and really balance that out. Let's see, Brianna, I see your question. So I thought I had a lift only on there, but yes, these structures will be in place for all lift investments. And so they look a little bit different when there's not a bond issuance or not another lender sharing first position. But that this would be applicable. And also for permanent supportive housing that is funded with the permanent supportive housing development resources. Those are funded through Article 11Q bonds. We have funded PSH without Article 11Q bond as the development resource, but where that is the resource being tapped, that is this is, you know, applicable based on that Article 11Q. Any other questions that we want to raise right now? I know, again, input, thoughts, recommendations through the survey. I also added in there just a open-ended question around other resources and tools that would be helpful for expanding production across the state. You know, as we have both the governor's production executive order in place, as well as, you know, significant investment from the legislature over the coming months, will be pivoting toward I mean, the efforts to prioritize getting Article 11Q bonds into deals, into communities will continue, but we'll also be engaging around how to best design and offer our resources. And so as we want to pursue all creative solutions, I'm always curious for everybody's great ideas that are, you know, just able to inform how we walk this through over the next couple months and then into the next couple of years. And I think as we, as council has really dug into these documents and many other, you know, legal documents broadly, I'm hopeful that we are going to be able to have, be able to share template documents so that everybody has understanding and awareness of the resources and what the requirements are associated with them. So there's no surprises. Let's see, Jill, I see your question. So it's, the question is, besides LIFT and PSH, are there other resources that are subject to Article 11Q bond requirements? No, those are the only two programs that are funded. And again, it's the PSH development capital. It's not related to the services or rent assistance resources for permanent supportive housing effort. But those are the two programs that are funded now with Article 11Q bonds. And moving forward, this is the largest source of GAP resources that we have to be funding affordable housing development. So this will be by virtue of scale, a central priority and effort to make sure that we can be successful. Yeah, Jillian, I see your hand.
Yeah, I was just curious if there was a similar call just for lenders to give feedback on the new documents, so that anything that might be, you know, there have been obviously some major issues to work through, but anything that might still be cause for raised eyebrows or issues with FIREA compliance can get addressed.
Absolutely. Yeah, I think that's a great flag, Jillian. Oh, go ahead, Christy. I see you came off mute.
Thanks, Natasha. Jillian, I was just going to say that it's our understanding that lenders have actually been working together to provide feedback. So we've been getting feedback from lenders that aren't even on existing deals. So if you haven't been a part of that group, I would encourage you to reach out to the group. I know Catherine Shaw has been really active. Andrew's been really active. There are a number of folks that we've been working with. And I think that we're getting to addressing most of the federal and state compliance issues that might be coming up through working with the various banks that we have been on the individual deals. But I think probably the easiest way to get information to us, any additional feedback that you have, would be to reach out to those lender groups that I know are meeting.
Okay, great. Thank you for that.
You betcha.
My other question is more related to the rollout of the additional 11Q bonds. And I know that this has been a priority, and I appreciate that OHCS and DOJ have made this the priority. And I guess I'm curious when we might hear more about what the expected availability of private activity bonds to pair with the LIFT funds will be.
Absolutely. I think and we have trying to remember if it's closed or not. No, we have our applications in for private activity bond, for our private activity bond pipeline for closings in this, the next couple quarters right now. I think we will, in terms of our funding calendar and kind of building what we'll be hoping to program for 2024 and 2025 offering, that's an engagement that we have upcoming. I think hoping to be able to get some noticing around that schedule in the next week or two, as we land a few different pieces. But I think knowing what we have now in hand from the legislature to be programming and prioritizing, we are working to hit, put out a strategy for engagement and hit the ground running on that. And that'll help identify the ability for us to leverage private activity bonds with the additional LIFT investment. I also think or also know that we are talking about what are other resources where, given the constraint in private activity bonds, what are other strategies that we can have for making those dollars stretch further and doing other types of lending or other types of bonding. So not with the, obviously the, to generate a 4% tax credit, it's required to use that private activity bonds, but really trying to also see what are the other creative solutions that we can be putting into place as we launch our 2024 and 2025 offerings that might help lessen the reliance on that and make our ability to focus those resources on a critical set of projects versus for the bulk of them. So I think that'll be more conversation for sure. I continue to see that our pipeline of and demand for 4% is essentially twice as much as we have. And so I think we still have a bit of time to work through here to get that constraint and those that pressure relieved. And I'm optimistic that we can get there. And I think to the degree that we can build other attractive and responsive financing tools, the better we'll be in getting to that place of resolution. And kind of having a resource fully subscribed feels great. Having it this oversubscribed is problematic in terms of adding delays to projects that could otherwise be moving forward.
Fair enough. Thank you. Thank you so much.
Yeah, absolutely.
And just, shout out to anyone on the phone if you're interested in, talking to your representative about making it a 25% test. I do have talking points from Senator Wyden's office if you want to email me.
Great call out, Jillian. Any other thoughts or comments? Okay, well, hearing none, again, really appreciate any feedback or thoughts that you have to submit through the survey, and appreciate everybody's efforts and really mobilizing to make sure that this resource can be used and impactful across the state. I look forward to focusing on future conversations, knowing that this resource is well in hand, and I think we're getting really close. I think that this is exciting times, and we have big challenges ahead to figure out working together, and so we'll have lots more opportunity for working together and having these conversations. I appreciate it. Thank you.